Well, hey there, everyone. It's Mrs. Estero here with another First Chapter Friday. I am really excited to bring this book to you today. It is January, and in January, we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King, and it is a really good time to reflect on the civil rights movement and what that means. And I would really love to incorporate some great literature into that concept. And to do that, I am going to be reading a very highly acclaimed book called Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. As you can see, this book has won several awards, the Newbery Honor Book, a National Book Award, and one for nonviolent social change. So it's been very well received, and I'm really happy to share it with you. So let me tell you a little bit about the story before we begin, and I'm going to just read to you from the book jacket. In vivid, free verse, and that means that she wrote this in a series of poems. It's called a novel in verse, and it's a really great way to read a novel. It goes very quickly, and the rhythm is great. So in vivid, free verse, award-winning author Jacqueline Woodson shares what it was like to grow up in the 1960s and 1970s in both the North and the South. Raised in South Carolina and later in Brooklyn, New York, Woodson often felt halfway home in each place and describes the reality of living with the remnants of Jim Crow and her growing awareness of the civil rights movement. In the South, kids teased her and her siblings about their Northern way of talking, and in Brooklyn, being a Jehovah's Witness meant following rules their friends didn't understand. But through all their journeying, there was always one constant, a deep family love and pride that made each Woodson stand up a little taller and shine a little brighter. Woodson's eloquent poetry also describes the joy of finding her voice through writing, something she always loved to do, despite the fact that she struggled in school. Readers will delight in witnessing her growing love of stories and her funny, touching experiments in storytelling as she exhibits the first sparks of the writer she was to become. Okay, so before we begin, I just want to make sure that you have your First Chapter Friday freebie. It is available in the video description. You can just download it and print a bunch and stick them in your reader's notebook. And this way, when it's time to pick a new read, you have something to refer to. Okay? So let's begin with Chapter 1. Now, this is First Chapter Friday, but these chapters are verses. They're a series of poems, and they're very short. So I'm going to read a handful of them to you so you can get the idea. And part 1 is called I Am Born. And the first verse is February 12th, 1963. I am born on a Tuesday at University Hospital, Columbus, Ohio, USA, a country caught between black and white. I am born not long from the time or far from the place where my great-great-grandparents worked the deep, rich land, unfree, dawn till dusk, unpaid, drank cool water from scooped-out gourds, looked up and followed the sky's mirrored constellation to freedom. I am born as the South explodes. Too many people, too many years enslaved, then emancipated, but not free. The people who look like me keep fighting and marching and getting killed, so that today, February 12th, 1963, and every day from this moment on, brown children like me can grow up free, can grow up learning and voting and walking and riding wherever we want. I am born in Ohio, but the stories of South Carolina already run like rivers through my veins. The next verse is called Second Daughter's Second Day on Earth. My birth certificate says female Negro, mother Mary Ann Irby, 22, Negro, father Jack Austin Woodson, 25, Negro. In Birmingham, Alabama, Martin Luther King Jr. is planning to march on Washington, where John F. Kennedy is president. In Harlem, Malcolm X is standing on a soapbox talking about a revolution. Outside the window of University Hospital, snow is slowly falling. So much already covers the vast Ohio round. In Montgomery, only 7 years have passed since Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a city bus. I am born brown-skinned, black-haired, and wide-eyed. I am born Negro here and colored there, and somewhere else. The freedom singers have linked arms, their protests rising into song. Deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. And somewhere else, James Baldwin is writing about injustice, each novel, each essay, changing the world. I do not yet know who I'll be, what I'll say, how I'll say it. Not even 3 years have passed since a brown girl named Ruby Bridges walked into an all-white school. Armed guards surrounded her while hundreds of white people spat and called her names. She was 6 years old. I do not know if I'll be strong like Ruby. I do not know what the world will look like when I'm finally able to walk, speak, write. Another Buckeye, the nurse says to my mother. Already I am being named for this place. Ohio, the Buckeye State. My fingers curl into fists automatically. This is the way my mother said of every baby's hand. I do not know if these hands will become Malcolm's, raised and fisted, or Martin's, open and asking, or Jane's, curled around a pen. I do not know if these hands will be Rose's or Ruby's, gently gloved and fiercely folded, calmly in a lap, on a desk, around a book, ready to change the world. Let's do another one. This one is called A Girl Named Jack. Good enough name for me, my father said the day I was born. Don't see why she can't have it, too. But the women said no, my mother first, then each aunt, pulling my pink blanket back, patting the crop of thick curls, tugging at my new toes, touching my cheeks. We won't have a girl named Jack, my mother said. And my father's sisters whispered a boy named Jack was bad enough, but only so my mother could hear. Name a girl Jack, my father said, and she can't help but grow up strong. Raise her right, my father said, and she'll make that name her own. Name a girl Jack, and people will look at her twice, my father said, for no good reason but to ask if her parents were crazy, my mother said. And back and forth it went until I was Jackie, and my father left the hospital mad. My mother said to my aunts, hand me that pen, wrote Jacqueline where it asked for a name, Jacqueline, just in case someone thought to drop the IE. Jacqueline, just in case. I grew up and wanted something a little bit longer and further away from Jack. The Woodsons of Ohio. My father's family can trace their history back to Thomas Woodson of Chillicothe, said to be the first son of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. Some say this isn't so, but the Woodsons of Ohio know, but the Woodsons coming before them left behind, in Bibles, in stories, in history coming down through time. So, ask any Woodson why you can't go down the Woodson line without finding doctors and lawyers and teachers, athletes and scholars and people in government. They'll say, we had a head start. They'll say, Thomas Woodson expected the best of us. They'll lean back, lace their fingers across their chest, smile a smile that's older than time, say, well, it all started back before Thomas Jefferson Woodson at Chillicothe, and they'll begin to tell our long, long story. Okay, last one we're going to do is The Ghost of the Nelsonville House. The Woodsons are one of the few Black families in this town. Their house is big and white and sits on a hill. Look up to see them through the high windows inside a kitchen filled with the light of a water Nelsonville sun. In the parlor, a fireplace burns warmth into the long Ohio winter. Keep looking, and it's spring again, the lights gold now and dancing across the pine floors. Once there were so many children here running through this house, up and down the stairs, hiding under beds and in trunks, sneaking into the kitchen for tiny pieces of icebox cake, cold fried chicken, thick slices of their mother's honey ham. Once my father was a baby here, and then he was a boy, but that was a long time ago. In the photos, my grandfather is taller than everybody, and my grandmother is just an inch smaller. On the walls, their children run through the fields, play in pools, dance in teen-filled rooms, all of them. Grown up and gone now, but wait, look closely. There's Aunt Alicia, the baby girl, curls spiraling over her shoulders, her hands cupped around a bouquet of flowers. Only 4 years old in that picture and already a reader. Beside Alicia, another picture, my father Jack, the oldest boy, 8 years old and mad about something, or is it someone we cannot see. In another picture, my Uncle Woody, baby boy laughing and pointing, the Nelsonville house behind him, and maybe his brother at the end of his pointed finger. My Aunt Anne in her nurse's uniform, my Aunt Ada in her university sweater, Buckeye to the bone. The children of hope and grace. Look closely. There I am, in the furrow of Jack's brow, in the slyness of Alicia's smile, in the bend of Grace's hand. There I am, beginning. And that is the first few verses of Brown Girl Dreaming. If you have never read a novel in verse, I highly recommend it. It's so enjoyable, it's so fast-moving, and most importantly, this book is so beautifully written. It's a true story, and it is incredibly meaningful. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you'll join me back here next week for some more First Chapter Friday picks. If you have anything that you would like to see featured on my channel, just drop a note in the comments and I'll do my best to make it happen. Until then, I'll see you next Friday, and happy reading.